Okay, so welcome, Sally, to this session. Thanks for joining again, and Yad's with us again. Yeah, just you had a little question to ask. You asked that and all.
I feel very interested on the subject of where ego and spirit comes from, feels like for other people, or how it's perceived. Because for me, ego feels quite loud and in front of me, in front of my forehead. And my higher self, Holy Spirit, feels like it's behind me. The awareness of my awareness, I suppose, is just behind me, watching Sally. And it's occurred to me today, well, that's my experience. That's how I translate it. And I just wondered if you could speak on that.
Yeah, I think that Yeshua talks about a universal experience this is leading to. He says a universal theology is impossible, but a universal experience is not only possible but necessary. I was listening to David Hoffmeister and Francis Sue. I don't know if you've listened to any of their stuff from the Living Miracles community. And so they've been doing this work many years. And, where they're going is experience. They're saying it's not about the theology. It's not about the words, the concepts in the Course in Miracles. That's a starting point. It's very helpful to train your mind and start undoing the ego that way. But in the end, it comes down to a pure experience, and that experience is a universal one, says Yeshua. It's leading us to the same. If there's only the same awareness, pure formless awareness of perfect love, and that's the ultimate truth. There's only that experience then, logically, and we're all being led to the same experience. So there's one ultimate destination. It's going to be the same experience of perfect love. But on the journey, as we come out of our individual self-delusion, there's going to be many different experiences that people have that seem to be different, or you're on a different path or something, but they're not actually. It's just how their journey is unfolding for them. This is going to be unique to everyone, leading in the same direction to the same ultimate experience of truth. So I hope does that kind of answer it?
Well, it was more like the discernment between the two voices. So when I'm feeling the Holy Spirit, it feels clear, quite quiet, very constant, there's no doubt in it. But then the ego is quite in my face and quite loud and disruptive, disturbing. I don't know what the word is. Distracting. And it just occurred to me yesterday and today that nobody really talks about those voices. Nobody really talks about how it feels and that it's not us. And I just feel like I'm missing there might be a whole movement and books and films all about how to discern these voices. I've not come across it, and nobody seems to talk about it.
Well, so the Living Miracles people talk about quite a lot. They talk about guidance, listening to guidance, and how do you determine which voice is which. But it's experiential. It's very difficult to say, well, this is it, and there it is, and it's an absolute truth, and because everyone's experience of it is going to be different. We're talking about experience. There are certain common themes though that seem to characterize the Holy Spirit versus the ego. So we can discuss those if you like. And those common themes would be the ego is doesn't feel peaceful. It feels conflicted. There's always a sense of a conflict, a resistance. There's a always negative emotion. and there can be many varied kinds of emotions, but there's fear, there's anger, and it can vacillate, it's confused, there's no certainty. It's very blustery, so it'll make a lot of noise, but there's no real underlying confidence there. So it's a very unstable thought system. You don't feel secure ever in the ego because it's not real. So how can you believe in something that's not true and have any kind of security? You can't, is the answer. So that's how the ego seemingly, quite universally is experienced, and it certainly matches my personal experience. And then the spirit is, I find it quite gentle, it's quite subtle. It's just and in feeling it doesn't have the desperate. It's another quality of the ego, desperation. I've got to do this now. Rush, urgency, desperation. The spirit's more like, okay, it feels right. Okay, I'll go with that. And you might still act quite quickly. It's an impulse, but it doesn't have the desperation quality. It's just like, okay, do that now. And there's gentleness behind it. It's not as overtly loud. It's not like screaming at you. It's not the desperate energy. It's just more like a calm, quiet voice, a sense of certainty. There's peace that underlies it. That's been my experience of it. And that's how I tell. But everyone, in the end, you've got to work this out for yourself, because my experience of it is what I've learned and what I've experienced. Everyone's got to work out what that voice feels like for them, and everyone's going to perceive it slightly differently, because we just wired up differently in the dream world. And so this is why we do the spiritual practice. You have to practice and practice, so you learn to listen to that voice and listen to the guidance, rather than relying on something else, someone else to tell you. Religion is really, someone else is going to give me the guidance. I'm looking to the priest or the imam or the rabbi or scripture for guidance, rather than trusting myself to go within. And all the mystics go the other way. They say, no, it's all about your own experience of God, and listening within for this voice that's going to give you the direction. So that's my take on it. Have you got any thoughts on it?
Yeah, any thoughts?
Sorry, I had to take a call, so I've missed everything.
I was
Okay.
just talking about how it feels to me really important that we should know the difference between the ego and spirit. We talk about it a lot on the course, but the actual experience of what ego feels like and what spirit feels like just doesn't seem to get talked about much. So that's why I was bringing that subject in.
Okay.
What is the difference for you, Yad?
Well, ego's the one that's saying negative things about me. And as Johnny says, that the spirit is the softer voice that comes back with the same message. Ego will try different tactics to get you to move, whereas spirit will just say the same thing over and over gently.
Yeah, that's a good one, the repeating part of it. Yeah.
It's just so you come back to it and it's still the same message, same words with love, not just trying to manipulate you at all.
Yeah, it just seems to me that maybe I've just got a calling to go into that a bit more, because it just feels like people don't seem to understand these different voices. But anyway, that's just my urgings today.
I think you're right. I think a lot of people don't, because if they knew the difference between the voices, they would be making enlightened decisions. They would be enlightened. So listening only to the Holy Spirit is the sign of enlightenment. Yeshua's trying to train us to listen to that voice only. He says this is this is the work of your lifetime, and this takes great effort to hear only the one voice in a world that is made by the ego, that's continuously trying to tempt you to hear another voice.
just reminded me, I did what I did last year. I tried a different tactic with my group, and I've created a load of like EAM questions around last week's lessons and asking if we had resistance. And I think one of them was have I got resistance to listening, to paying attention to my mind? I was just going to see what actual see if I can find it, the exact phrase I used, because I basically took the words from the lesson and then turned them into questions to see if there's resistance. So do I have resistance around taking control of my mind and watching my thoughts, which I did have, which was quite interesting, and then offering or surrendering my mind in service to source, God, Father, whatever you want to call it, which is another one. But it was quite interesting. It's a really interesting exercise to do it that way. So anyway,
well, thanks for sharing that. So if anyone's listening, give that a try. It's all mind training, isn't it? You're going, okay, we'll look at it that way, think of it that way, all with the single goal of waking you up.
But if you've got resistance in the first place to listening to that, then you're setting yourself up for a fall, aren't you?
What was coming to me is every single decision we make, every choice we make, it's either an ego decision or a soul nudge. So you could stop yourself and really slow yourself down, couldn't you? With every decision, check in. Is that from the source or is that from ego? And that would really even just one new choice would make a difference. But if you were doing it with each of your, choices day to day, wow, wouldn't that be different?
Well, I had a conversation with somebody on the other day, and they were saying about responding to that instant nudge. So that contrasts to what you just said. It's like for them, it was their soul was the instant nudge there, and they got a yes answer to something, and they didn't question it. Then that was the soul, and the ego was then the questioning part. So I guess it's going to still be different for everybody, isn't it?
It's interesting we're talking about decision, because today's reading from the text is called Rules for Decision. Interestingly, so this is how it works with the Holy Spirit. It is. It's a long one. It's 17 paragraphs. I'm not sure we'll have a chance to do it this afternoon, but we'll see. If we crack on, maybe we can have a look at it. He's really saying, he's telling us there, well, this is how you actually can practically arrange your day. How do you approach your day? And it's one of the most practical, helpful sections of the text, because he's actually giving, it's almost like a workbook lesson inserted into the text. So maybe we can have a look at it, but otherwise I'm going to do a session this evening, because it's a really good section. So if you can join at 8:30, we'll finish.
I can't stay long today either. I've got to go at 1:30. I've got another call
at 1:30.
Yeah, so that's
okay.
Quarter of an hour.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, no problem. It's up to you. So well, let's dive into it, shall we? I'll just start the live session, start the screen share. Okay, so share screen and there we go. Yeah, so if you can read that for us, Sally.
All the adversity I've had in my life, all my troubles and obstacles have strengthened me. You may not realize it when it happens, but a kick in the teeth may be the best thing in the world for you. This made me smile because I've got a couple of wobbly teeth. And I thought, oh, kick in the teeth. Is that what I'm getting? Okay.
Interesting synchronicity.
Well, it's a good thing to think, It's a good thing to switch it into a positive. Whatever you've had strengthens you, but you learn from it, don't you? You learn more from the struggles than you do from the easy stuff.
Yeah, and it's often the best thing. You know, it's part of your awakening journey, and many beneficial things can come from it. You just can't see them at that moment. So you can see why, you know, it's a belief like that. Walt Disney was incredibly successful, one of the most, you know, successful film producers and business entrepreneurs ever, because he just interpreted everything through that lens. And he said, okay, well, it's kicked me in the teeth. Here we go again, but I've learned something. And then he came back. He didn't give up. So this builds. I was listening to something the other day, and they were talking about the fifth sort of quality. So we've got emotional, physical intelligence quotient. You've got emotional intelligence, typical intellectual intelligence, and this is like the next intelligence, resilience. What about, you know, how resilient are you to slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, as Shakespeare phrased it. And resilience comes from beliefs that are true. So this is essentially, and here what he's saying is you must let go of your misperception of that situation. There's forgiveness is embedded in there by implication. You must let go of your misperception of the situation and see that this is actually beneficial. And Yeshua says at some point, all things, you must realize that all things are helpful. In fact, it was in yesterday's section of the manual for teachers.
I've read that as well, that nothing bad can happen to
the
you.
Development of trust. And he says all things are helpful. You must learn that everything is helpful. Let me just go back to yesterday's one, and I'll show you.
Nothing bad can ever happen to you.
Yeah.
It doesn't. But the thing is, this really makes me laugh. It's not bad in the eyes of God, and you know, it's not a bad thing. It's just that it feels bad to us, doesn't it, as humans? It does not feel bad just because we know that it's not bad for us.
We have a misperception of it.
But that kick in the teeth we may understand that it's learning, but it still doesn't make it feel better, does it?
But the illusion is suffering, isn't it? We're suffering, but that's not true. It's all love. So
you suffer because of a misperception of it. So whatever's happened, you misperceive it, and you believe that this is hurting you, that you're not getting what you want, and that interpretation is suffering. Actual physical pain doesn't make you suffer unless you interpret it incorrectly. It's just a physical sensation. We're talking about mental and emotional suffering, because we value what he's saying here is we value form, and so we get distressed when this need not be painful, but it usually is so experienced when you go through this period of undoing, because we're still attached to these false things in the world, and then we suffer. But it's when we can accept that all changes are helpful. These changes are always helpful. When the teacher of God has learned that much, he goes on to the second stage. So if you look at Walt Disney's where is it? This one. You look at his quote again. What he's saying here is really, the start of the spiritual awakening. To recognize this is step one. All things are helpful. So apparently there's adversity going on because things are being taken away and everything seems to be going pear-shaped. But I reinterpret that and I see that this is actually maybe the best thing that's happened to me, because this is the start of my spiritual awakening. That is stage one in the development of trust journey that Yeshua talks about. if you apply this quote. So you start to see, look, there's a universal. Course in Miracles is, high teaching and it's non-dual, but you see that it's supported by anything that's true. Walt Disney probably would have had no idea about, well, he couldn't have, because he died before Course in Miracles was written. So he had no idea, and maybe he wasn't particularly spiritual, but he tapped into this and he understood this, and then he expresses it as a truth. And what I love about the course is it incorporates it. You can go, okay, well, you can see now how this quote is actually directly related to its teaching. And that's what I find all the time. That's why I can choose quotes. I choose quotes from all over the place, different people from different walks of life, different times in history, and they fit in with the course's message. It just shows you that it's a universal truth.
Even pain doesn't exist, does it? Because pain is a thought.
Yeah, pain is physical pain you're talking about.
Because
So it's a sensation. What's physical pain? It's a sensation, but nothing on the sensational level really exists. It's all part of the ego's construct, designed to fool you into believing that, yes, you really do have a separate self that can suffer. Apparently, you can now experience this physical pain. So ultimately, no, it doesn't exist.
So what about people with like chronic pain? That's interesting. Like my dad it was in constant pain actually, because he had part of his hip joint removed. So he was in constant pain. And I think that
in his mind.
Well, on a physical level,
But that doesn't
he had an excuse for it.
Yeah, he had a story to. But my theory now, since I had my mystical experience the other week, is that if you had your arm chopped off, if you looked and saw the damage that had happened, you'd make up the story that would be painful, and the fear of dying would then make it all a bit dramatic. But if you couldn't see it and you weren't thinking, you were just in that still space in your mind, there wouldn't be any sensation at all.
Do you think?
Yeah, that's
an interesting idea.
It's my
so where I've cut myself, sometimes I don't know that I've cut myself until it starts hurting. So I haven't seen it, or until it'll be bleeding and maybe it still doesn't hurt, but I won't have seen it. But even if I haven't seen it, it won't. I won't be aware of it until the pain kicks in. So how does that work? Because I'm not aware of it.
It's all about awareness.
But if I'm not aware of it until it starts hurting, that kind of doesn't match with your theory there.
Well, on the physical level, something's happening, but if you're not aware of it, there's no suffering, and you're not experiencing pain.
But then I do suddenly experience pain, and that's when my attention comes to, and I'm like, oh, I've cut myself because it hurts. But not I've cut myself. Oh, it hurts. It's like it hurts. Oh, what have I done?
So you're feeling the pain, and then you look outside of yourself for a reason for the pain.
Yeah, and then I see that there is a physical on a physical level. There is a reason for it.
Yeah, but it's still not real, is it?
It's a sensation. No, I get you. I mean, when I gave birth, like I did consciously think that every pain was a positive thing. And it hurt, but it's not the kind of hurt that you hold on to anyway. You can't remember it. But at the time, it wasn't. I embraced it, and it was a very different thing. So I didn't need painkillers or anything, because I just embraced it.
So there, there you have the reinterpretation of the
physical sensation,
of the physical sensation, and so you're not suffering. No. You're actually like, this is a good thing. This is taking me closer to giving birth to this new life, and so then there's no pain or suffering, because suffering, there's physical pain, and I mean that's an illusion as well. But all right, you cut yourself, you're bleeding, the nerves are doing their thing. It's a program, but it's a program that's very difficult to switch off. So that might be happening, but then you don't interpret it in a way that makes you suffer, and then that's going to help it to heal. So there's accounts of yogis and mystics who they'll like heal virtually instantly. It'll take them
That's
few
what
hours a day to heal from a seemingly like serious injury. It's like just because they just don't make it real.
Yeah, theta healing's like that, isn't it?
So if you've got a program that says I don't burn when I touch something hot, then you don't burn. Because my housemate, she can take things out of the oven with bare hands.
What?
Doesn't seem to notice it. When me, I'd be like dropping the pan on the floor. And my son deals with pain very differently. He can do damage to his body and just not notice it and just not be.
Does it not damage her skin though?
No,
Not at all. Because I've got asbestos fingers. You know, I can touch things that are quite hot that other people can't.
But it's like that if we burn our hand, and then we've got this story that if you put aloe vera on it straight away, it will stop it and heal it instantly. And then you can see like a couple of hours later, it's completely healed. So you know with your mind you've healed it. You've created it with your mind in the first place, then you've healed it with your mind, haven't you?
But then what about sometimes when it doesn't work?
There's something in the mind that's blocking it, isn't there?
Yeah, but it's not necessarily a pattern to that anyway. Oh well.
Fascinating.
Too much, yeah.
Yeah. So it's all mind, and then we use the physical world as some kind of excuse or justification. Oh well, that's healing it. That a bit of magic, but it's all happening on a mind level, really. So this teaching is just saying, well, focus on what is primary. That's your mind. How are you thinking about something? How are you feeling? How are you perceiving? Because that is critical, and that's going to make the difference.
So I was thinking about using magic to cure things. So I was thinking, if I use a painkiller for my dog, because it makes me feel better. So when I give her the painkiller, I see her limp. So I feel better. So I've changed my mind about the situation. So then I was thinking, so if I stop believing she needs the tablet and keep reinforcing the belief that she's pure formless awareness, perfect love, and she's perfect how she is. So I stopped giving her the painkillers. But there was just a little bit in my brain that wasn't completely healed, mind that was not completely healed, that goes, oh, but are you doing everything? Are you covering it? Is she in pain? Is she in pain? So it's like, oh, just give her the bloody magic potion and don't be done with it. But then I was thinking, by doing that, I'm buying into the ego illusion again, aren't I? So I'm perpetuating the problem by doing that.
Yeah. So we use the magic to try and make this whole construct real. We're saying if magic is working, then it must be real. It's an interesting one, because practically speaking, sometimes you need to get some medical treatment or something. You've got a cut or something, and so the course isn't saying don't do that. Just don't go into the illusion that it's the magic that's that's doing it. You understand that it's all mind, and your healing intent is what's really important. So you don't make the magic really important and real in your mind. I sometimes very seldom take pills, but occasionally I'll get a headache. Well, I'll take 2 pills and it works, but I go, okay, I know that this is on the magical level. It's a quick, easy solution to the headache, and it'll go away, quicker than maybe it would if I just went, okay, I'm just going to ignore it. Kind of just lingers there. Eventually, it's going to go away anyway. But I was listening to Ken Wapnick on this, and he said it's just, if you're going to use it, then just realize what you're doing. Be aware of what you're doing. So, okay, I understand. It's a pill, magic. You're treating your dog. Okay, there's a potion. I understand. It's within that construct. So this isn't the ultimate answer. It's not going to ultimately save you or the dog, but as a temporary expedient, okay, but just understand what level you're working, and then it's okay, because you're not getting confused about your identity and reality and etc. through the magic. That's what he wants to try and avoid. You know, this just confuses you even more, and you become more attached to a separate self through that. So kind of use it, but don't believe in it.
Okay, so it's just using a tablet, knowing that releases that thing in your mind that's holding the discomfort.
Because it's quicker and easier than trying to work out what that discomfort is.
Yeah, and it just depends on, like, you know, if I've got a headache and I'm like, well, I know that I've been running, sometimes I've exercise intensity, or I've been in the sun, you know, okay, that's the reason. So on the physical level, so okay, take a couple of pills and it's gone in half an hour, and you know, no drama. But I'm not thinking that magic is going to save me, that this, you know, pills are the answer to my health and well-being. You know, it's just okay, you know, take it away, remove it, and focus on other things. It's not an issue.
There's so much more to that, though, because it's like you say, if you think you're going to get a headache because you've been in the sun, then where does that come from? And why are you not nudged to have a drink so you're not dehydrated? It's like there's a story behind that as well, isn't there? You know, my son broke his arm quite badly, and he had to have metal splint put in. But he was very fortunate that the surgeon that was on duty was a specialist. So he actually fixed it so that the growing plates were attached. And so Ivan said that, you know, if it hadn't been done properly, he would have ended up with a small baby hand that would not have kept up the growth. And so he was really fortunate, but he had some part to play in that, didn't he? In his expectations, in his belief, in his stories that he brought to it, that he was going to be fine. Whereas if he'd had a different mindset, he would have ended up with a deformity, wouldn't he? Telling a different story.
So the form follows the belief. Form follows intent, and then it gets played out on the level of form. You go, okay, well, you know, the doctor did this, so the doctor is what saved him. But actually, Yeshua is asking us to look a bit deeper and say, actually, you know, what's the truth of it? Is it's all your mind, and then the form of things just confirms your belief to you. It's the manifestation of your beliefs, and so it's just about being aware of this. You know, this is all about awareness. It's like, okay, you know, that doesn't mean you have to live as a total ascetic, and you know, there are some people and religious sects that, like, okay, you never will have medical treatment. You won't allow a drop of alcohol to pass your lips, and then it becomes unhelpful because it's an obsession. What they're really saying then is that somehow by following that rule they'll be saved. That some kind of rule on this physical level is going to save them, and that's just not true. So those kinds of things aren't helpful because they just entrench the belief in the mind that of this level is real, and you know, the magic, doing it or not doing it, is actually going to do something. And Yeshua is just saying, no, it does nothing. You know, magic is nothing. So yes, on the physical level, you might have a temporary experience of having a headache, and then it's corrected, or you've got a cut and then it's healed. But recognize that this is all happening within the illusion. This isn't ultimate healing at all, and that's okay. You know, you go, okay, well, I'll deal with it on that level, but I'm understanding the bigger picture at the same time. That's you know, then you can kind of function and deal with these things on that level, and just don't get caught up in it. Ultimately, the highest level, these yogis and mystics, I mean, they don't need medical treatment. All this kind of stuff is just it's pretty much beyond them.
There was an old fellow who was found in a cave, wasn't there, recently? Did you read that in the news? I don't know how come I heard about it. Somehow, and they thought it was like 120 or 140. It was like almost, you know, shriveled up little man. That had been, it was in a cave, who hadn't spoken to anybody for a long time. I don't know why they took him out of the cave and didn't just leave him there, but and he survived. Yeah, but he survived without water or drink. Sorry?
Where did they find him?
I can't remember. I mean, I don't watch the news, so it was one of those things that just sort of flashed across my field. But I saw a photograph of him, and he just looked really old and shriveled. But he'd obviously hadn't been eating or drinking or been in daylight for decades. People had forgotten about him.
and yeah, so he must have been in an altered state, you know. He
Yeah,
isn't
for sure.
yeah. So this is not uncommon in the East. The mystics just take themselves off and go into a state of deep meditation. Their body goes into kind of a hibernation state and uses very little energy. They don't need to eat or drink. They're just, you know, in a hibernation state. And then
Yeah.
they're like, oh, we got to take you out and bring you into some kind of civilization. And I'm sure he's not enjoying it at all.
He looked very confused.
I'm sure it's like, leave me alone. I'm quite happy in my cave, thank you.
Well, if he's been in there for like 100 years, it's
Yeah.
very confusing.
Best
Yeah.
meditation he's ever had that lasted for like 40 or 50 years or something. And then somebody
Yeah.
picks him up. You know,
Was that fairy story of what was it, Rip Van Winkle? Do you remember that? He went to sleep for 100 years, something like that. So that's
Yeah.
a kind of a pointer to that, you know, an altered state where you go into a timeless state of mind.
Hmm.
Where
interesting that Yad came across that bit of news. You fancy a cave, do you, Yad?
Oh yeah, that'd be
Yeah.
good. I think that's why I've got children to anchor me, definitely. Because if I didn't have kids, I would
take yourself to a cave.
I would, or on the streets, just
What you wish for, hey?
no, I'm not doing that. I've kind of been there, done that, not doing it again. So
Homeless. It's actually the quickest way. He says it's the quickest way because by doing this, you're going to be getting the lessons.
I'm quite happy to have a home and a shower and, you know, to flushing toilets. Thank you. I've experienced life without these things. I do not. I can be enlightened in comfort. Thank you.
Well, as long as it's just your perception of them. So you can have these comforts, but just don't think that they're really making you safe. And this is
I know.
This is reality.
I know, it's such an illusion. People think that they're safe in their little houses behind locked doors. It's like, what are they safe from? Not safe from anything. That only you know, anything that they feel that they're endangered by, the house isn't going to protect them.
Yeah. So you know, that's the kind of thing he's trying to say when he says you think your roads have never taken you anywhere, your houses have never sheltered you. He's not saying all be homeless, because people can take it literally and say, oh, well, yes, you're saying we should all just let all this stuff go and all just, you know, live on the streets or live off the land. That's not really the point. He's saying that it's the attitudes, the belief around it. You think the house is going to save you, and then you invest all your faith in that. That's not going to save you, because the house will crumble, and your body is going to die, whether you have a beautiful house or not. You know, it doesn't matter how much money you have. We've seen that everyone in the end is going to die. So your money isn't going to really help you ultimately. It's the state of your mind when you do die. Now, I suppose the ultimate would be, you know, be enlightened and have a very, you know, comfortable, nice life. But often it doesn't work that way, because you need that adversity to become enlightened in the first place. And then once you become that, you don't really have any interest in those things. Why would you choose them or work for them, or, you know, to acquire a nice house and a nice car? It requires effort generally. No one's just going to give it to you. So you got to now put time and energy.
I don't know. That's not true.
Huh?
I was given my last car.
It can happen. Well, it can happen, but there's no, you know, enlightened beings just not invested in it. So there's no. Why would you?
So you're not driven by it, but I'm not driven by these things at all. Material stuff has never driven me. So when my back is up against the wall and I haven't got any money, it's not. I'm not inspired to create money for money's sake or to buy things. It's just literally to pay my bills. And, you know, now and again I look around and think, well, I kind of would like to have more choice, but, you know, I'm not driven by those things at all. But it's still, you know, having a flushing toilet. We we see that as a normal thing, don't we? It's not
Mm.
luxury, but actually it is a luxury. But because it's very normal for us.
Mm. Well, it becomes the the standard. So you can have all of that. There's nothing wrong with it as long as you're not attached to it.
Yeah.
You don't think that your house and your toilet and all of this somehow gives you a self identity. I mean, it's bizarre, but I'm sure there are people who get identification with toilets, because that's what the ego will do. It'll find anything. But normally it's identification with the house and car, and the whole lifestyle. So, and I'm doing really well, and I identify with the character. And I like that people can see, why do people buy fancy cars? Well, because then people see me driving. And,
I don't know, isn't there something about the pleasure of driving a really nice vehicle that doesn't make a lot of noise and that it's really smooth in the gear change and it's got comfortable seats?
Well, that would be an authentic. That would be a more authentic reason to buy it.
Well, that would be why I'd buy a
sheer
nice
driving
car.
pleasure, BMW slogan. Okay, so just buy it for the sheer joy of it, and you're really enjoying the experience.
Not
and
a
it becomes
status.
your meditation practice. You wonder, a combination of maybe it starts that way, and then it becomes that sort of wears a bit thin, and then it becomes about the status and the image, and then you need another car because 2 years gone by, I need and they like the thrill of getting the new thing. So often it's very complex to unravel it. Someone's belief, they might enjoy it, but then there's also a strong identification with the form of it. So a lot of these supercars and stuff are totally impractical. I mean, it's not a practical car to have. Why would you buy a car that can drive 300 kilometers an hour and you're never going to be able to drive it at 300 kilometers an hour because you're breaking the speed limit completely? You can't.
Oh, well, they didn't. When the M25 was first built, that's what it was for. It was for people because there weren't very many cars on the M25 when it was first built because people didn't know about it. I used to go on it and used to think, am I allowed to be here? Because there was no other traffic. It's insane how it is now. But then all you'd get is the fast cars that they'd go and they'd test to see how fast their cars could go. But obviously they can't do that now. But that's originally, I think that's probably what it was built for.
Well, it was built for practical purposes.
No. I'm saying no. I don't think so. I think it was built for those people to test their fast cars because they're the ones with the money who were in the a
Yeah, who knows?
I'm going to have to go. It's been a real pleasure being back talking.
Very interesting discussion. So
I'm going
thank
to
you.
have to go.
Hopefully, we'll see you again.
Well, see you next week. I hope. Because I'm just down to one session a week now. So okay. All right then. Thanks very much. Then I'll speak to you soon next week.
Okay. Bye then. All right. So let's get back to our. It's nice when someone else joins, isn't it? You have a bit of interesting conversation. Where are we? Back to here. Okay. So we've done the quote. If you want to have a little read of just read Disney's story because it's quite interesting, I think.
In today's inspirational quote, Walt Disney, the American animator, film producer, and entrepreneur who founded the now multinational Disney entertainment giant, gives you a wonderful way to interpret any adversity you will ever face. From the age of 10, he and his brother Roy were forced by his father Elias, who owned a newspaper delivery route for 2 local papers, to wake up at 4:30 every morning to deliver one paper before school and repeat the round for the other paper after school. The schedule was exhausting and Walt often received poor grades because he frequently fell asleep in class, but he nevertheless continued to do this paper route for more than 6 years. You see, for me, that would be a story and a belief system that he was tired because he'd done the newspapers. But anyway, I accept that's his story.
Yeah, ultimately. But when you're a child or teenager, I mean, he wouldn't have been able to transcend that. And eventually, I've played with lack of sleep, and you can function on quite little, but eventually you do need to rest. I was like, okay, I can fudge it to a point. Eventually you got to sleep because that's the deep delta sleep. If you're lacking that, you're actually not reconnecting with your source. So that's why sleep deprivation is so detrimental to people's mental well-being, because you're depriving yourself of that connection to source, and then you feel that kind of low energy because you didn't get enough connection with source. That's why we need to sleep. So it re-energizes the whole mind. So sleep is actually a mystical state, except that the ego's made sure we're unconscious, so we're not aware of it when we're doing it. But the advanced meditators go into that state, and they're conscious and they're aware, and then they go, oh wow, actually I'm aware of this. And that's that's where advanced meditation takes you.
Yeah.
Okay, so carry on. He was rejected. So that was experience as a child. So I mean that's pretty grueling and pretty harsh. He didn't have much fun, put it that way. But you'll see how that then leads him to create an empire that's based on helping kids to have fun.
Yeah, obviously.
Because his own suffering was the catalyst, was the inspiration for, okay, I want to make sure other kids do have fun, and they do have they're not just working like I was, and so he brings this this creation into the world of Disney and all the characters. It was really about his mission was to spread joy in the world through his business, and he did that very successfully. So yeah, and he had various other difficulties. He was rejected by the US Army. He was laid off from his first job just after World War One, and he started his own business, which didn't last very long, but it led to the next one that also went bankrupt. And he just kept at it. He had this mission to create something through animation, with the purpose of he could see that this was bringing happiness and joy to people. In a time when there wasn't much of that going around. So 1929, the Great Depression started, and for 10 years, the entire world was in an economically depressed state, and people went through a lot of hardship. And it's no accident that then Mickey Mouse comes along, which is all about fun and laughter, and it was successful because people needed that. It was a carrier of a frequency, really. Mickey Mouse was a carrier of this higher energy frequency, which was in his own mind, and that was the vehicle for expressing it. So apart from all of his success, I mean, he's the most successful individual ever in the movie industry. Won 22 Oscars from 29 nominations, from 59 nominations. I mean, that's pretty extraordinary, because some even great directors, they might have won 1 or 2, but he's done 22. And 59 nominations, but that wasn't really what it was about. It was about his mission in life, which is to spread joy to both children and adults, because indirectly, when the adults go along with the kids and they watch the movie or they go to the theme park, they have an uplifted experience as well, and there's connection around that with families too, helping them to laugh and have fun at a time when social, economic, and political circumstances in the world were extremely challenging. So the Great Depression for 10 years, it was almost like he was called to the work. 1928, Mickey Mouse is born. 1929, Great Depression happens. 10 years of that. Then you go straight into World War II, which was again economic hardship, and then post war. So until about 1950, the world was really not in a good state, and people were challenged, and so they needed something else, and that's why the Disney thing flourished, because it was about bringing happiness and joy to people, and helping them to connect with something beyond just the material reality of their hardship, their adversity, and because he'd been through adversity, he could do that. Otherwise, if he'd been born with a silver spoon in his mouth and he hadn't experienced all of that, would he have been inspired to create Disney? No, he wouldn't have. Why would he have? So it came, his point of pain, his suffering, was exactly what led to him fulfilling his higher purpose, which is how it works. So the question is, would he have found would have had this mission and done what he did if his childhood hadn't been so challenging? Would he have had the grit to persevere through the difficulties he encountered his life and business career without this early training? Probably not. So as he saw, a kick in the teeth, the difficulties were exactly what he needed to become the person he became. So just a nice story that we can learn from all these stories, because these are all role models for our own lives. The hero's journey. You look at someone else's hero's journey and you can learn from it. And then just reflect on the challenges you faced in your own life that have shaped your character and helped you to become more resilient to life's inevitable challenges and open to learning who you really are. Did you do that?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting how it really feels like the story that we've created in our childhood is exactly the right one to bounce off from, to kind of follow what it seems our soul is calling us to do. So perfect.
It's all perfect in its imperfection. You have to reinterpret it and go, actually, the hardest thing is actually the best thing. What was, the biggest challenge in my life is actually what's going to allow me to live a meaningful, purposeful life in this world, because that becomes the source of my special function in this world. Well, what I'm called to do. So Walt Disney found his special function. He was called to do this work, and then there's a meaningful, fulfilling life. Although it's a dream, it's a dream of helping others to awaken to the truth, which is why we're all here. So your greatest challenges are your greatest learnings and the source of your inspiration. And then you become invincible, invulnerable, because okay, well, whatever it is, whatever the suffering was, I can turn it around and I can see the good in it, and I can see how it's actually helping me to fulfill my true function. It can inspire me to do that in a way that pursuing, like if he'd just been about the money, there's no way Walt Disney would have done what he did. He wouldn't have persevered through all those challenges. It wasn't about the money for him, or the success, or the kudos. It was about, he had a mission, and Disney was the way he expressed that mission into the world. So therefore, he needed to build the business, but that was the secondary. The mission was to help people to experience more joy. So yeah, just an interesting example of someone who did it, and we can learn from. Which leads us quite nicely into today's lesson, which is kind of connected, because if you can recognize that whatever is suffering, the part of you that's misinterpreting the adversity is not part of you, then you have the answer to letting it go. Whatever suffers is not part of me.
I had a download a few weeks ago. I think I told you about. I realized that there's no suffering at all. There's only love. And you know what you always say, when you actually have the experience yourself, there's no doubt in your mind. So I'm always carrying that with me now, that there's no suffering. There's only love here. It's really helpful. So today's lesson resonates.
Yeah, and it is all about, he's teaching us this in words and these concepts, so that ultimately we have the experience. That might happen today, it might happen tomorrow, it might happen in a year's time, you don't know. But you're sowing the seeds, you're opening yourself to that experience to come. But if you don't do this preparatory work, it's probably unlikely you ever will have the experience, because you haven't opened your mind to it. So you had the, you know, the mystic experience because you've been doing all of this groundwork and just learning and consistently showing up to the sessions and doing the lessons. And then you open your mind to it, and naturally those experiences arise when they're meant to.
I remember you telling a story, I think it was Einstein, was it, that used to go to sleep with a coin in his hand, and then when he fell asleep, the coin fell out and woke him up, and he had an aha moment. Was that Einstein?
Yeah.
I seem to be having the same experience where I wake up in the middle of the night and I have a little download, and then I go back to sleep. And then when I wake up first thing in the morning, I get a new insight, and that's working really well. You know, 2 insights a night works quite well.
So you have those insights because you're in an altered state. You're in a theta state, which is sort of associated with dreams. Whenever you're dreaming, you're in theta, and so you can download on another level. It's not rational intelligence; it's intuitive intelligence. And this is where the source of creativity is, intuition, and you see deeper. So great ideas come in that altered state, and then you come out of that, and then you might use the more left brain analytical intelligence to formulate it and work it out and plan it and whatever. But the actual seed of the idea is in an altered state almost always. Any even scientists like Einstein, and certainly artists, sportsmen, say it's in those moments when you're just deeply connected that you have your best ideas, and it just kind of drops in, and you're like, and that's guidance, isn't it? So we're coming back to that theme. I got something. It's like, okay, yes, I need to do this, and I need to then follow that when I'm not in the state of necessarily in that state. And that's the persistence, to just persistently say, okay, even in moments where I don't feel particularly inspired, I'm not downloading now. I just, I continue to persevere. True character. It's a quote. True character is the ability to follow a decision you made when you were in an inspired state, when you're no longer in that state. That's true character. Okay, I had that, but I'm willing to persevere. I'm sure there were times in Disney's life. Okay, it's difficult. I'm up against it. Why don't I just quit? But there's something in him saying, no, dig deeper and honor this, because he persevered with this inspiration driving him. Ultimately, he was successful. Okay, so whatever suffers is not part of me. Shall we have a little read of that, and then actually we've got this to do. I nearly forgot. So how much time do you have?
I haven't got a lot of time.
What, sort of half an hour, or
half an hour is the most I reckon I've got now. Just waiting for just to confirm it, but I think I've either got to go now or half an hour. So that's the choice.
Yeah. Half an hour. Okay, so let's just do the lesson then. We'll just read it, have a little discussion, and we'll do a meditation. That'll take us to about past.
I'll do the original or just the translated?
I think read the original and then
okay.
Just check it. I see I made an error there. So read the original, and then we'll.
I have disowned the truth. Now let me be as faithful as disowning falsity. Whatever suffers is not part of me. What grieves is not myself. What is in pain is but illusion in my mind. What dies was never living in reality, but did but mock the truth about myself. Now I disown self-concepts and deceits and lies about the Holy Son of God. Now I am ready to accept him back as God created him, as he is. Alternatively, I have disowned the truth. Now let me be as faithful in disowning falsity. Whatever suffers is not part of me. What grieves me is not me. What is in pain is only an illusion in my mind. What dies was never living in reality and only mocks the truth about myself. Now I disown false concepts and deceits and lies about the holy extension.
Make it a wholly aware extension.
About the wholly aware extension of pure formless awareness of perfect love. Now I am ready to accept my true self back as pure formless awareness of perfect love extends it, and as I am in truth.
Extends. Now I am ready. Did you finish it?
Yeah.
And as I am in truth.
Yeah.
Extends it. Set my true self back as pure formless awareness of perfect love. Extends it, so this one self that I am in truth. Or self-concept. So any thoughts on that?
I didn't read this before today, but it's interesting. It says what is in pain is only illusion in my mind, and that's what I said earlier, wasn't it? Yeah, what dies was never living in reality. That's a good one, isn't it? Yeah,
because none of it's real. This is how you do this. None of it's true. None of it's real. So therefore, you can't really make it real in your mind. That, you know, to make it real in your mind is to believe in an illusion. So all pain, all suffering, all sickness, all death is simply unreal. And there can be no exception to that. You see, this is what Yeshua's saying. There's no exception to it. Because if one bit of suffering is real, then reality is no longer purely one. It's no longer just pure formless awareness of perfect love. You now have something else that's real, which has now seemingly caused the suffering. So a non-dual approach to suffering is that suffering isn't real. And anyone who believes in it, you might empathize with them. You go, well, I understand why you believe in it. You're confused and deluded, but I don't believe it's true. And I'm not going to help you to perpetuate that belief. I'm going to try and free you from it.
Yeah, this feels right.
And related, what I like here is he's relating your self-concept to suffering. He's saying this is a deceit, a self-concept, false self-concept, and a deceit about yourself that thinks, that believes that you can suffer. So only the victims, so this is where we went yesterday with Susie, only the victim can believe in suffering. So this is the lowest self-concept that we can have. Now I identify with this. I believe I really am a victim of an unfair world. And now the victim must suffer, right? If you believe that, then suffering is inevitable because victims are born to suffer. So you have to change the self-concept of being a victim and being worthless and being deserving of all of this, deserving of the punishment, in order to let go of the suffering. Right? So it comes back to your self-concept. That's what he's pointing us to. It's your self-concept that's making you suffer. But if the self-concept that's making you suffer is false, then all suffering is false too. So there is no suffering.
I like that. Victims are born to suffer. That's a good phrase.
And we are born into suffering. If we have that program, which everyone does to an extent when they come into form as a human being, then of course you're going to suffer because that's your mindset. You think you deserve to suffer because you think you really did separate from God. You really have destroyed one. Just you see how it's all tied up.
Mm.
It explains it really elegantly. So why is the human condition the way it is? So well, how can a baby who's innocent, completely innocent, suffer so terribly? And baby's abused, or it's all kinds of horrible things can happen to these seemingly helpless, defenseless infants. But maybe this is all part of the program. They set themselves up for that. They incarnate into a helpless form so that they can be the victims of a cruel world. And that's the way we start our lives. So when my son was born, I really saw that. I was like, this is shocking. Like, why would you do that to yourself? Why would you come into a helpless infant body in this cruel world and now rely totally on the external world for your survival? You can't meet any of your needs yourself as a baby. Surely that's a setup of the ego. So now you're in this helpless state. Now, perfect, ripe opportunity for you to be a victim of the world. And this is why there's so much programming goes on at a very young age, in the first 7 years of life. If someone is deeply unconscious in the first 7 years of life, I can guarantee they will have been programmed into that. Maybe they came in with a resident program, their karma, but then they kind of got that entrenched through their first 7 years of life and their childhood experience, that yes, I really am a victim. And then that carries through your whole life until you're willing to look at it and say, but the problem is not other people and what happened to me. The problem is I believe in this. I still believe in the false self concept, the helpless, enervated little life victim self. That is really the cause of this. That is why I suffered in the first place. So then you get to the heart of it. It's my self-concept that's the problem, and I can change that. That's the empowering thing. You don't have to believe in that anymore. You can change it and transform all of this. You don't have to believe in any of this rubbish that the ego has made up. And that's freedom. That's what Susie saw yesterday. She was just like, oh my God, I'm done with it. Thank God, I'm free. It's amazing. Because the self-concept, that false self-concept, had been exposed and largely released. When you see what it is, how can you believe it in? So direct connection between this false self-concept, the ego, and the suffering that is not a part of you. And that's the way to undo it. This simply isn't part of me. This is a false self-concept that doesn't exist. So I'm not going to make it part of me by believing in it, by valuing it, by suffering because of it, by feeling all kinds of emotions about it. I'm not going to go there because it's just false. Okay. Any other thoughts on number one?
No.
What's he saying there in summary?
Well, just as we created our false self, we can deny our false self and return to the truth of pure formless awareness of perfect love.
And that gets us out of the suffering. Whatever suffers. So what suffers? And this is a question Ramana used to ask. So people would come to him and he'd say, who suffers? They tell him their woes and troubles. He'd say, who suffers? So, well, I'm suffering. So, well, who's the me then? Who's suffering? It's a good question to ask, isn't it? Who suffers? Who dies? Because if that self is illusory, then there is no suffering and there's no death, because the self was never real. This is the logic. So the key to letting go of all suffering is let go of the self-concept that makes you suffer, the separate self, and then you can't suffer, irrespective of what you experience. Doesn't matter what the experience is. If there's no false self-concept to interpret it and suffer, then there's no suffering. It's so simple, isn't it? You know, why do we struggle with this? But because that self-concept is deeply entrenched in our minds, our false self-concept, and it wants to continue. So it doesn't like you to know this truth because it's the end of it. No more false self-concept. Okay, so we move on to number 2. If you read original and then the translated version, and then we'll do a meditation on it.
Father, my ancient love for you returns and lets me love your son again as well. Father, I am as you created me. Now is your love remembered and my own. How do I understand that they are one? Alternatively, my source, my ancient love for you returns and lets me love your extension again as well. I am as you extend me, and I remember your perfect love and my own, and I understand that they are one.
Why don't you skip the now?
Where was now? Oh, now at the beginning. Oh,
You
now
skipped it twice. Now I remember your perfect love.
is
My
love.
own. Now I understand that they are one. I'm just like, okay, interesting. You skipped it, and you skipped it there as well.
Oh, wow. Yeah. All right. Okay.
Now, because it's so immediate. I think that's why he's included the word. Now I remember. Now I understand. It brings it totally into the present moment. So let's bring it totally into the present moment in a meditation, shall we?
Yeah, lovely. Thank you.
Okay, so making yourself comfortable, sitting with your feet shoulder width apart, back straight, cup your hands in your lap, close your eyes, and start off by taking a nice deep breath in through the nose. You're breathing in, noticing how the stomach rises and the chest rises and the subtle flow of air in through the nostrils. And clench the sphincter muscle, draw the energy up the spine into your heart center, and draw it up into the crown of your head, and this warm wave of energy rising up, cresting like a wave in the ocean, the top of the inhale. And then just scan your mind, and noticing any thoughts, any emotions going on there, and any related perceptions. Just breathe into all of that. Nice deep breath in. Feel this awareness just dissipating any of these thoughts and emotions. Just shining the light of your true awareness on them. Breathing in helps you connect with spacious awareness. It's why the breath and life are synonymous in many languages. And if there's anything that's there that you don't want, it's clearly not serving, it feels difficult or uncomfortable, negative in any way, negates the truth of pure formless awareness. It's just the spacious, loving awareness that you're experiencing. Just let it go by reminding yourself that whatever suffers is not part of me. Whatever suffers is not part of me. So and just exhale, blow it all out. Dark energy out of your mouth. Come to rest at the bottom of the exhale. In your lower stomach and your groin, notice the air that's flowing out of your nostrils. Out of your mouth. Blow it all out with the breeze of your breath to the nothingness that it really is. Follow the stomach into the spine. Just be very quiet, very still. The bottom of the exhale. Pause in the stillness of the gap. Just resting in this deep peace for a few minutes. And just deeply connect to this presence beyond all suffering, beyond the false self-concept you've identified with. Makes all suffering possible. And just rest in this deep, still, calm, quiet space beyond all suffering. And experientially, you just experience the truth. Whatever suffers is not part of you in this way. There's nowhere else to go, nothing else to do. Nothing else to think about. And you just sink in deeper and deeper with each breath, just sinking deeper and deeper with each breath, breathing in and out through your nose, observing the subtle sensations of the breath in your nostrils and on the area just below your nostrils. And you just surrender to this. Just sinking inwards, going deeper and deeper with each breath. Breath flowing in and out through your nose. Touch area just below your nose. And if any thoughts arise in this deep, tranquil state, anything that disturbs your peace in any way, any thought really is irrelevant. Just going into pure formless awareness that doesn't think in the same dualistic way as our ego minds. Just be aware of any thought and emotion. Just let go in your mind of any of these disturbing thoughts and beliefs. Imagine they're like a cloud, clouds just drifting by. They have no power to obscure the pure blue sky, which is your true awareness, or the sun, which is your source. Light shines through that awareness. So just blow it all away, the breeze of your breath, to the nothingness it really is. So gently coming back from this deep state of awareness to awareness of the body and the breath, the senses, and the world. And on the count of 3, you're going to open your eyes. Actually, before you do that, just listen to the lesson again. Just watching your breath. Repeat after me in your own mind. I have disowned the truth. Now let me be as faithful in disowning falsity. Whatever suffers is not part of me. What grieves is not me. What is in pain is only illusion in my mind. What dies is never living in reality, only mocks the truth about myself. Now I disown false self-concepts and deceits and lies about the wholly aware extension of perfect love. Now I am ready to accept my true self back. Pure formless awareness of perfect love extends it, and as I am in truth. So make that decision in mind. My source, my ancient love for you returns and lets me love your extension again as well. I am as you extend me. Now remember your perfect love and my own. Now I understand that they are one. And with that understanding, on the count of 3, you're going to open your eyes and continue on with your day in that higher understanding. So 1, just breathing in, noticing how the stomach rises and the chest rises, subtle flow of air in through the nostrils, seeing any thoughts and emotions going on still, and wanting to Let them go. Exhale, release them. Notice how the air flows out, the chest and the stomach suck back in. Energy raised up into the crown of your head, subsides back down. Your lower stomach and your groin. And you rest here. In the peace and the stillness. On the count of 2, notice the weight of your body pressing down into the chair and your feet touching the ground. Notice what feeling and touching with your hands. Maybe there's a subtle taste in your mouth. Smell in your nose as you breathe in. And notice what you're hearing in the surrounding environment. Just noticing all these things from this very still, calm and surrendered state. So there's no judgment, no interpretation, sense perceptions, and you cannot suffer. It's only your misinterpretation that makes you suffer. So on the count of 3, open your eyes. Just take a minute to look around, noticing the various objects in the room around you. This very aware state. And don't name anything, judge it or label it. Just look at it from a state of pure formless awareness. Notice that the peace you experienced when your eyes were closed is still very much there. Connect with that peace, anchor it in. Look at another object, notice the same peace is there. You're training your mind, teaching your mind that this peace, this underlying awareness is the truth, who you are, and that no variation on that state is ultimately true. There's no suffering. So to help you stay in the state, practice today's lesson frequently. Yeshua recommends every hour using the 3-minute breath break recording I've sent you. Or you can just do it in a few seconds by just bringing to mind the lesson, breathing, giving you some instructions for doing that while in your text message and email. So try and practice as diligently as possible this afternoon and evening. And if you can join us this evening, then do, because we're going to be talking about the rules for decision, which is a very practical, often quoted section of the text that's more like the workbook actually. It talks about how you actually approach a day and apply all of the teachings of the course in a day to make right-minded decisions. So if you can join, then do that. Otherwise, I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you, Sally. Are you going to join tonight or not?
No, it'll be too late for me, thanks. I'll listen to the recording now. And I don't know if I'll make it tomorrow.
Okay.
I might make it for very short while. I'll see.
Mm.
I'll do my best. Thank you very much.
All right.
See you
Okay.
soon. Bye.
Namaste. Bye. So that brings us to the end of this afternoon session. Join us this evening if you listen to the recording at 8:30 p.m. UK time. That's 9:30 South African time for some reading and discussion of today's text reading, which is about the rules for decision and how you can actually apply all of this in a day to make right-minded decisions. So should be a good session. Hope to see you then. Namaste, which means the divine self, true self in me beyond all suffering, acknowledges and honors that same self in you.